Okay. All right. C3 people, let me know if I'm back and you can see me. I just had to end the video and try again. So uh, let me know when I'm there. Thanks, Timothy, on Instagram for letting me know it's working fine on your end. Yeah, the trouble is Facebook right now. I'm trying to do two things at once. So I'm just going to come back to my story and retell it. I'll try to tell the drive-through version of it. Um, so uh, the monk is sent to a hut, and he is trying to overcome his own anger, his own lust, and his own fear. And he sits down to meditate as if this is the moment. Finally, I'm alone. Finally, I'm in a place of monastic solitude, and I'm finally going to be able to rise above and overcome these fears. So he sits down to meditate. He lights these three candles, and in front of him is a serpent in the corner of the hut, a cobra, a deadly snake. And he is filled with fear, and he can't sleep, he can't meditate, and he can't move all night long, just gripped by this intense fear. And the candles start going out one by one, and just before dawn, the final candle blows out. Gone. And it's at this moment that he breaks down, and he falls down, and he cries, and he weeps, and he feels his own vulnerability. He even feels the vulnerability of the creature itself, the serpent, and relaxes, in a sense, into his own fears. And Pema tells this story because she says the thing with fear is we have to go toward it, not away from it. We don't we don't deny it, repress it, um, dissociate from it, but we get close to it. We feel it. We feel its contours. We say something like, "Actually, I am afraid." And it's the moment we relax into that a deeper way of being seems possible. A fuller way of being seems possible. We're living in the democracy of our own psyche. And in a strange way, we're able to extend through compassion, um, uh, or I should say, we're able to include the other in an act of compassion, like the serpent itself in the story. And it's not to say I'm no longer afraid. It's actually to say, actually, I am afraid. And that's what courage is, to feel those fears. And I think I'm saying that because if you have friends on the other side of the political spectrum, I think just by saying out loud, yeah, I'm a little afraid. I'm personally afraid of, of America and American culture and my own life and my own livelihood. And I'm sometimes afraid to go to the grocery store. Start there and open yourself up to the possibility of um, of listening to the fears of the other. That's getting close to it rather than repressing, denying, and splitting off. So I promised a couple practical things here at the end from Thich Nhat Hanh. So here's the question: how do we begin? How do we begin um, with the other? How do we begin practicing the possibility, the imaginative possibility of a third way? And he says his advice is, number one, to practice deep listening. To practice deep listening. And the funny thing about such a phrase, to practice deep listening, is that it almost needs no explanation because we all know, in a sense, what he's talking about. We know, or we should say, we know the opposite when we're pretending to listen. Like, I'm listening to what you're saying, but really what's happening is that I'm thinking about my response, or I'm thinking about the ways in which you're wrong, or I'm thinking about, um, how superior I am, or it could be the opposite. I'm thinking how inferior I am, and how smart you are, and but that's not listening. That's not what Thich Nhat Hanh is calling deep listening. Um, he says that the essence of deep listening has two expressions. He says the purpose of it is for the other to empty their heart. Now think about that. Think about the possibility of someone out there that you may disagree with, and in your own family, we can make it a little closer to home. So I'm listening, and what is the aim of my listening? To allow the other person to empty their heart. Because usually the words, the rhetoric, the ideology is a mask, it's a facade for something else. It's a facade covering up a world of pain and suffering, and of difficulty, and of fear. So if I'm to practice deep listening, I'm to tell myself, can I make space for the other person to empty their heart? And the other part of deep listening, according to Thich Nhat Hanh, is he says that the goal is to understand the other's suffering as best we can. And you could say, well, maybe I could never fully understand someone else's suffering. Yes, probably not, but you can understand it more than you currently do. What is it like to be you? What is it like to be you? Where does it hurt? What are you afraid of? What do you hope for? What do you long for? What do you love? What do you really love? I mean, after all, that's often the source of anger. I'm angry because actually I love something, and it's not, I can't get to it right now, or it's out of reach, something like that. So this is the essence of deep listening according to Thich Nhat Hanh. So that's number one. How do we start? The other suggestion I might have here at the end is not from Thich Nhat Hanh, but something that I've been thinking a bit about. And here's the way I like to put it. Is there anything right now in our divisive culture that I can be for rather than just against? And I have a lot of against energy, and I at times want to come, um, want to enter the conversation by making sure it's clear what I'm against. And I think the challenge right now, as a third way kind of challenge, is there anything I can be for? The next conversation I'm in that's difficult, the next news article that I read that really gets under my skin, is there anything that I can be for? And is there anything with the other that we are mutually for? So, yeah, I think that's about all I want to say today in part two. I guess now this is part two of two. Um, those are my challenges. What would it look like to engage in some deep listening? And is there anything that you can commit yourself to being for rather than just against? Thanks for joining me. Thanks, Instagram people, and thanks C3ers. And hang out for Reggie Key Sears on the C3 page, our musician. You're going to love it. And the C3 community, if you want to do talk back, we'll see you at 11. Peace.